Welcome back to Marcus Sheridan. Glad to have you here again, as always, to talk about something that I think is on everyone's mind. And I want to just set the stage before we dive in. Something you say a lot, and we say to our clients at Impact, is that video is ever more important for your business. It helps, as you say, to quote you to yourself, it allows our prospects to see us and know us before they have to reach out to a salesperson. It's a way of breaking down barriers. And at the same time, video is getting easier and easier to produce, and that's a good thing. But I think there are times when it can feel as though some of the new tools, especially in the age of AI, that are coming out, allow us to produce video faster than ever, but they could potentially cross a line and do harm as opposed to good to our brands. So that's setting the stage for the conversation. Marcus, where's your head at knowing this from the businesses you talk to and your thoughts broadly on the subject?
Well, for every lightsaber, there's a green and a red color, right? And it's no different when it comes to really what we're talking about here is synthetic media. That's the phrase. It's synthetic, AI created synthetic media. Now, underneath this umbrella of synthetic media, you've got good stuff, which would be considered authentic synthetic video, and then you've got deepfake, which has malicious intentions, right? And so you've got deepfake, you've got authentic. Of course, everything that is they ask you answer, everything we've been talking about is authentic. The problem comes when the marketplace doesn't necessarily know the difference, right? And that there's so much of our future is going to be spent when it comes to media and understanding if something truly is authentic media or is it a deep fake media. And what's interesting about it, there's this phrase where if everything can be faked, then nothing is real. And so that's where it gets really, really interesting. And this is known as the liar's dividend. So like the liar's dividend is like, what's the payoff for the liar? Because if the liar lies enough, eventually you just don't really know if they're telling the truth at all. And it could introduce the possibility of is it real? Is it not real? Right? So that's the liar's dividend. And so I think one of the key phrases here is the dividend. There's going to be a payoff to a lot of people, to a lot of companies, to a lot of organizations that aren't going to create authentic media. They're going to create deepfake media. And I could see a day, and let me give you an example of this, John, just how this could work, how I've thought about it on a personal level. So I've got a YouTube channel about fishing. A lot of people don't know this about me, but it's called Saltwater Fishing University. And I could easily see the day coming, because people love that channel, that like fishing. They love that channel because it's like, wow, that came out of the ocean in this case, and that was a really cool experience. But what happens when, all of a sudden I'm reeling in a whale and I'm getting it into the boat, which would never happen, by the way. All right, it doesn't work like that. But what happens when it does? All of a sudden, you've got your next set of viral videos that are like, oh wow, this guy just reeled in a whale, and he's getting, or she's getting, whoever the person's getting, like all the views, and that's the thing that goes viral. And then before you know it, everybody think that that's a thing, and it's actually not a thing because it's never going to happen. It really can't happen. But that's the problem with deepfake video. And so there's a multiplicity of ways that it can be used for bad. We know most people have heard the bad. The issue that we have is you can't there's no great deepfake tools or indicators out there that necessarily say this ain't real. And so what brands have to start thinking about is, okay, how can I authenticate the content that I am producing? And this isn't such a big deal today, but it will be a big deal over the course of time. So within the next few years. So there will be this question in the marketplace of, is that real? Is that authentic? Did that really happen? And so what you as a brand can do is you can say things like, or you can do simple things right now. You could do hypothetically like a digital watermark right now, or you could do some type of blockchain verification or metadata verification. And these are things that you can actually do. But you also want to, if you're doing something significant, you almost want to document the journey of creation. And so more and more going forward, we're going to see brands documenting how they create their content and really bringing the marketplace into that, so that the marketplace will see, oh, that's real because I remember when they were preparing that. And you're able to show the process. See, there's always a story of preparation. And so if you can show the story of preparation, you can at that point prove authentication to your audience. And this is something that, again, a lot of people aren't thinking about right now, John, but this is going to be a big deal in the future.
It's very interesting because I think so often in video production, we are taught to hide all of the work that we do. You want that final product to be as flawless and as seamless as possible. And it's interesting that now potentially those steps along the way might be as important as the final product because they prove that authenticity that is in question in everyone's mind. What I was thinking about as you were giving your answer is, I think that we clearly see a dichotomy between deepfake technology and authentic production. But I wonder if it's more of a continuum, that there's a lot of gray area in between. There's a lot of variability where something can be mostly authentic or partly authentic, or there are questions along that path between those two extremes that get us into some really interesting territory.
The key to, when we say deep fake, you have to understand this really means bad intentions. It's intentionally trying to misrepresent. So for example, what is not deep fake is, let's say we decide to do a doppelganger AI doppelganger for Marcus Sheridan, right? And it essentially looks like me. It sounds like me. Maybe there's just a few little elements about how the light refracts off of it, or how he moves his lips, and it's not quite the same. The key is, in that moment, that we need to be willing to tell the marketplace up front, hey, this is doppelganger Marcus, right? This is AI created Marcus. It's still authentic Marcus. He knows it's there. We know we're sending this, or we're creating this. And so there's going to be a lot of, let's say, like digitally created avatar videos of people, representations of people, doppelgangers, whatever, of people. The problem is who created it, because if it wasn't created by the individual or their company, then it's got bad intentions. But if it's created by the company, it's still authentic, assuming the person knows and the audience knows that it's not, quote, real. I know my audience would have no problem communicating with a chatbot of Marcus, asking it questions about, let's say, content strategy, and it would be somewhat enjoyable if it was coming from me, but I didn't have to do it because it's like the most advanced Marcus Sheridan chatbot in the world. That would be a really cool experience. And they know that we know this ain't real. Like, this ain't really Marcus. That's powerful, and that's very authentic, but it's not real. It's fake. It's not a deep fake. A deep fake means somebody created chatbot Marcus, and that thing is misleading, and he didn't know about it, and Impact didn't know about it, and nobody knew about it, but it's misrepresented online. So that's a major, major problem, right? And so when we talk about synthetic media, there's definitely going to be good, authentic synthetic media, and there's going to be bad, and there's going to be sometimes when we create something that is synthetic with the best of intentions, but we might do it the wrong way, right? And so it might, let's say hypothetically, and this would never happen, right? But let's say hypothetically, somebody at Impact, my agency, decided to create Doppelganger Marcus and didn't tell me about it. So they had the best intentions, but if they didn't tell me about it, that's a problem, right? And so these are the things that, from just a guideline perspective, you want to get in front of that with your brand and with your just general policies.
And it'll be fascinating what happens when the real Marcus in this example leaves Impact. Does Impact own the Doppelganger Marcus, or does the Doppelganger Marcus go with Marcus? Because many of our contracts say that the intellectual property we create while we're at a company is the property of that company. So many interesting discussions that flow from that. But you led into avatars, and I see that as being much more in the cards for a lot of businesses out there. They can be easily created to be a spokesperson for the brand. An avatar can deliver the message flawlessly and in one take, and you don't have to get anyone on camera. You don't have to fly someone or bring someone to a studio. And I think I know what you're going to say about this, but I'm interested because you often say how important it is to have the people of the company on camera representing all the things that the brand says. So what's your opinion there? Is that a good move for companies? It's cheap, it's easy to edit, and you can do it like that. Or is that a trust killer as opposed to a trust builder?
I don't think it's a trust killer at all, assuming you have the content, the IP, so that these models can draw from that and truly communicate like you. Because the worst thing that can happen is you got nothing online because you haven't been busy creating content, you've not been following the principles of they ask you answer, and all of a sudden you're like, I want a digital avatar, and it's nothing like you, right? And so that's not authentic. That's not good. You can't do that. But the idea that we could have a synthetic, digitally created Marcus avatar, like for me, and that could act as a chatbot on our website, to me, it's just magical. Or anybody that's listening to this, that you could be the person that's talking, literally walking them through your website. And it's almost like they're going on a journey with you, and you're just talking to them and asking them questions. And the whole time it's AI generated. That is so powerful. Like, none of us understand what's going to happen with website UX as we go forward because of AI and because of these digital avatars. But once again, if you do not have the foundation in place of IP, of content, you're really not going to have a lot to give them. And so this is why they ask you answer continues to be incredibly, incredibly important.
Yeah, great reminder. And for anyone who's listening, just to reiterate, this is Marcus Sheridan. We're speaking to you, author of They Ask You Answer, author of The Visual Sale, speaker and thought leader on all things digital marketing. So I want to ask you, Marcus, for any of these new tools that's coming out that is offering us efficiency, but potentially at the expense of trust, how do businesses evaluate each new tool to know whether this is going to help them get their content out there faster, it's a shortcut they should take, or could it potentially do damage to the brand? How do they evaluate?
Well, I think the first thing you have to say is, listen, the world is already in many ways ran by AI. It's going to only continue to be ran by AI. And so the mindset has to be, how do we make this work for us? Because you can't just work against it. You're going to lose. Like, I'm telling you, you're going to lose that battle. It's like putting your chair at the beach, the tide hasn't come in yet, and thinking, I'm not going to have to move my chair. You have to move your chair. You're going to move your umbrella, or you're all going to get wet. You're going to get left behind. It's how it works. We see it over and over again. There's going to be resistors, but those resistors, they're not going to be around at the end of the day. And so you say, okay, we need to experience the benefits from it. Now you've got your general guidelines in place. Now you can have like an overabundance of guardrails, yes. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're so constricted that I see some companies, they can't even produce content because they have all these reasons, like, well, we can't really say that because potentially somebody could take it such and such a way, and that would be bad. So what happens? They do nothing, and they win no trust. And they continue to think it's 1995. So that's ridiculous. And so we're gonna have to get on that train, and then we're gonna have to say, okay, what's the guardrails? Well, like some of the most simple guardrails is if we're using AI, we tell, especially with video. If you're using AI with video, you have to show the marketplace or tell the marketplace. And what I mean by that is I'm talking about really changing something or creating something that isn't necessarily real. If you're using a AI image creator, you should be saying that. And at the same time, though, let's say I write an article today, John, but I take it and I run it through some type of AI tool after the fact and say, hey, write this better than I just did. And it does it better than I did. It took the core of what I said, but it just changed it somewhat. I'm not going to tell the world, oh, by the way, AI made this better. I'm not going to say that, right? And so you want to put those guardrails in place. The biggest thing is we want the marketplace to not be utterly misled. And if, especially, we're doing something that is representing a human in AI form, then the marketplace got to know. They got to know every single time. But you got to act like it's a good thing, because here's what's so wonderful about it, right? You don't have to be embarrassed about it. Hey, here's what we've created. Here's the benefit to you. Here's this person's going to walk you through your entire website experience, for example. I mean, that's really, really stinking cool. And now all of a sudden everybody's like, okay. And what is going to be weird is eventually going to be very, very normal, and everybody is going to be doing it. So I think just by saying it, talking about it, being open about it, that's going to make you more real, more honest. And you can have a bunch of fake avatars. In other words, they're not even real people, but you said, hey, this is an avatar. This is not one of our people on staff, but they represent our thoughts. And we love this person. That's a win. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, Marcus, to wrap up, as you work with businesses, and I'm especially interested in very, very small businesses, because if a business has reached a certain size, likely they have an established marketing department. They might already have videographers or other producers for whom AI can be a tool to help them do their job faster. But if you're a very small business that hasn't reached that threshold, that doesn't have the resources to hire that first videographer, say, is AI a sudden leg up that could get you kind of punching above your weight without having to invest in the manpower?
You know, much like, to me, the internet was the ultimate equalizer because it gave the digital Davids a chance to play by different rules and to be Goliath. And we've seen that so much. And we've seen that with so many They Ask You Answer businesses as well. AI is the next phase in that, to your point. The ability to punch up, to play in a league where you couldn't have necessarily played before, because AI is a multiplier. It allows an individual to do the work, a single individual to do the work of multiple individuals, if you play this the right way. And it's just a matter of being willing to get in the sandbox, experiment with it, live in the solution. You know, it's a big key to this. Understand it's not going to be perfect. Don't prejudge, right? Oftentimes when AI gives us poor results, it's because we fed it something that was also poorly done, right? And so once you get better at communicating with AI, it will become much better at communicating with you. And so look to blame yourself if the outputs aren't necessarily what you like. But in terms of your ability as a small business to use it, good grief. I mean, you're going to see entire industries flipped on their head because the small businesses that didn't have the red tape and were allowed to be outrageously creative just started doing things in conjunction with AI that nobody had ever seen before. They're going to flip the script. They're going to change the rules. Everybody that's big is going to complain. They're going to say you can't do that. But then eventually they're going to be trying to do it themselves. And that's the history of the world.
To wrap up, as a final thought, and I think I know where you're going to go with this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. There are still certain principles that we need to keep in mind whenever we're using a tool, whatever we're doing, because the purpose of making content doesn't change, even if the tools that allow us to make it do. And if the rules of the game change, the point is still the same. You can't lose sight of that point, or you're more likely to cross that threshold and do damage to your brand. So, to you, what is that core principle that you need to keep in mind when you're making any kind of content, with AI or without AI?
Yeah. So to lead into this, there's a lot of content out there. One can argue very easily that we've got an infodemic, right? It is just an unbelievable amount of content, much of which isn't necessarily productive or helpful. And this is going to get worse, which is why you've got to say, will this thing that we want to do, will it induce more trust? It's always, always your moral and business compass. It's far and away the best strategy that the greatest marketing teams, the greatest sales teams of the world use. Will this induce more trust? And if that's your obsession, you quickly get over things, or how could we use this to induce more trust, right? It's like, it's the same thing. Come back to the T word, right? That's always at the center. And if that is your capstone, if that's what's supporting everything else, well, then you're going to be very, very successful.
That's a great reminder. As always, it should be at the front of our mind whenever we start anything. Marcus, thank you as always. Just so everyone knows, they can follow you on LinkedIn for the advice that you share pretty much daily, and they can connect with you here at Impact. And if you're having questions about how you can produce video that can do the most benefit to your business and do exactly what Marcus says to build trust with your audience and to make your brand the one that they associate with, advice they can believe in, products they can trust, etc., talk to us at Impact. We help businesses like yours every day. Thank you, Marcus, as always.